Supriya, I can. There you are. Hi, Supriya.
Hi, Jyotsna. How are you? Good evening.
I'm well. Good evening. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time out, Supriya, to join me, that too on a Sunday evening.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Tell me.
Perfect. So we're doing a quick introduction. Actually, Supriya doesn't need an introduction. Many times over as an MP from Baramati, Supriya Sule joins me in a segment of Table Talk that I started recently, and she's just the second guest on it. Women in politics. What does it take to be a woman in politics in India? And of course, the life behind the headlines. Supriya, I believe COVID got you too recently. I hope you're feeling well.
Thank you. I forgot
Okay.
about.
Oh, that's great. So tell me, I'm going to start with a topic that is, of course, making the headlines before I go to other stuff. The marital rape laws that is, in the headlines. And I wanted to ask you personally, what do you think? Why is there so much resistance? Are women themselves not speaking enough about it?
I'm not so sure, but my personal thing is I don't think there's deep understanding of what really is going to be in this law. I think people are confused about it sometimes. Some women are saying that no, एक family का issue है, family में ही रहने दो. So I think what we really need to do is propose it, put it into a website, take a lot of feedback, talk to all stakeholders, talk to women, take a vote on it. There is hundreds of very easy ways, thanks to technology, to get a lot of feedback. So I think
Right.
that's what we need to do. We need to take all our stakeholders on board. I'll give you a small example. It's about changing the age from 18 to 21 for
Yes.
marriage. My
Yes.
instinctive reaction was wonderful. Okay, because I mean, I also have a daughter. Did I get her married at 18 or 21? The answer is no. But there are other families, there are other structures, there are other reasons. So I think the only thing what we requested the government of India is that it's a great thing to do, but we feel wonderful, but we are responsible as MPs to make sure that all our stakeholders are on board when we make such a big, legislation. So we requested Ms. Smriti Rani, my friend and colleague Kani Mori was on, and I think most of us were agreeable on that. That let's send it to a select committee or a joint parliamentary committee or back to its department, which has a committee in Women and Child Committee in Parliament, whichever committee where you can call all the stakeholders, have a good healthy discussion, take feedback from people what people feel, because there's a very mixed reaction, and surprisingly whichever forum I go to, men or women, and I bring up this topic, there are both sides. I mean, there are like 40-50% people tell me, no, 18 ही रख दो. And there are another one saying, no, 18-21 करना ही है, लड़कियां पढ़ पाएंगी. So it's a very interesting thing for us, even when we are making legislation, that how there are two such strong views. It's not one way. Sometimes, like when we said, no, when there is a rape and bad behavior, the person must be punished. There must be. See, everybody says, yes, we must go for it. But with marriage, people are a little sensitive. My personal reaction was people would say, boom, kar do 21.
Yeah.
But it's not kar do 21 in that thing. So I think the beauty of governance, beauty of legislation is to hear everybody out, propose a good law, convince people who are not convinced, and then roll out something which is good in the larger interest of our society and all our stakeholders. So I think the same thing about marital law. I think we need to communicate it better. We need to take it to all our stakeholders, have good debate discussions, and then come up with a good law which will help our society and all the stakeholders. And even I would go one step ahead, that make sure that the concept of marriage, which is so wonderful, there are children involved. So let's find a nice way where we can work something out which keeps the fine balance.
Fair enough. But, Supriya, also, I think the fact that women representation is still at such a dismal low, I think it kind of contributes, don't you think, in not sending the message across, at least to the women, because sometimes you find that the women themselves are resisting changes that will benefit them.
I'm not so sure, because even there are a lot of men who have made very, very progressive decisions for you and me. I mean,
Yeah.
logically, if I can take you a little bit in the past, look
Sure.
at B.R. Ambedkar. In the Constitution, he was a man who gave us rights of
Yeah.
voting. Look at Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, who educated his wife, one of the tallest reformer of Maharashtra in India. He was a man. So I can give you so many examples like this. You know, Maharashtra is the first state which gave women reservation for women in panchayats and Jilla Parishads and everywhere. And that decision was also taken by a man. So
Fair
what
enough.
my point is that a lot of reformers who have changed your and my life as women, I would say, have been men and women. So I don't think we can just take it away from them that it's us versus them. I think that's one thing which I personally feel it's never us versus them. We are all in this whole situation together. So it's not that all men are bad. My father's a wonderful human being, so is my husband, and so is my son. You know, so I don't think it's fair to say it's about all of them. Every society, every gender has good and bad people. Every profession has good and bad people. So I don't think we can really pinpoint down and say, you know, they're against us. It's not us versus them. It's about all of us.
Excellent. I second that actually. But what needs to be done to get more women into politics? I mean, now we've recently seen, the mother of the Unnao rape victim. She's, gone into politics, and perhaps she feels that's the only way for her to speak up and get justice. And but how do we, given that our women representation in parliament is 20th from the bottom, how do you go about encouraging more women to take this up?
I think what we need to do is we need to get the reservation bill going. See, when did this new leadership come from the panchayats and the Jilla Parishads? And you see so many, like a city like Mumbai, which is the largest city in the country. We have a woman who really leads from the front as the mayor of Mumbai. I'm so proud of Kishori Dai. You know, you see her all over the place. The minute there is something within and less than like second she's there in half an hour, calculating. Like there was a fire yesterday in Mumbai. Within like 45 minutes she was there. She stays quite far, but she reached the point. She was leading from the front. So we see so many wonderful women who are leaders in politics. I mean, there are leaders everywhere. Your mother's a leader at home. She really leads from the front. So I don't think leadership is only in politics. You see leadership all over the place, in any workplace. But especially since you've asked me about politics, we saw a lot of good leadership come with this reservation. So maybe to start with, maybe a time-bound program, we could have reservation for women to start with of course we have in local body, but in assemblies and in parliament. And I would actually have urged the Honorable Prime Minister, because he has such a big number, he has such a big majority. This may be a wonderful opportunity to do it.
So, something personal for you here, Supriya. We all know that Sharad Pawar is such a big name in politics, but for you personally, has that been, or professionally actually, has that been a blessing or a curse?
I would say blessing. I mean, clearly the first foot in the door is so much easier being his daughter. You can't run away from that. And I have only gratitude in my mind, and I'm very conscious of it that clearly, and I would very humbly submit to you that yes, there are a lot of benefits of being any successful parent child, father or mother. There's no doubt about it, and then to be in the same profession. But let me slightly take you to another side of it. There is constant comparison also. There can be disasters, and it can hurt you with no fault of yours. You may be good, but you're constantly compared. Fortunately for me, I can talk this for myself. I have never aspired or put benchmarks or goals for political positions or ambitions like him, because he's had a outstanding career. I mean, he was a first chief minister, the youngest chief minister of Maharashtra at 38. So at 38 he was big in the game and completely self-made, which is not in my case. But I think very differently. I look at it that, and I compliment my parents for that they've let me be. So, even if we are both in politics, my brother's in politics, we've always tried to complement each other. It's never about, we don't necessarily talk the same way, or, he has let my brother Ajit Pawar and me be personalities of what we are. And then people will decide. It's public life. In public life, you cannot say this belongs to me. Nothing belongs to you. We are here to serve the people, and people will decide whether you are going to be in this game or not.
So when those comparisons come, how do you actually react?
I don't react at all because I think we're two different people, and he's chalked out a career for herself, and I have, and that's why I said I compliment my parents that they let me be. So I think uh, they don't judge me off. They've never, as parents, put any pressure on me that you must do well, you must come first in school, you must learn this, you must learn that, you must get these kind of marks. I've never felt that pressure ever in my life from both my parents. So I think that's one big thing. But at the same time, I must tell you, this is for every profession. Why are we always, as politicians, cornered? There are children in every field, a doctor, journalists, lawyers, everywhere, actors, film industry, everywhere, and have seen extreme success and extreme failure. So I think sometimes I feel it's a bit unfair to say. Clearly, I won't run away from the fact that entitlement exists, the first foot in the door. But let me tell you, there are children in all professions who made a great first foot in the door and then have only miserably seen failure. So trust me, it's not that. So there are both sides of it, and you have to define your own self. Nobody can tell you what's right or wrong. Each to their own
Right.
is.
Yeah, of course, each to their own. And I think you're right. I mean, you can get a foot in, but how you keep going forward is entirely
Exactly.
up to you, right?
Jyotsna, if you don't mind me saying these few things, that the first election clearly is about what I mean, I completely give credit to my brother Ajit Pawar, to Mr. Pawar, and my family, and the entire NCP cadre who supported me. But in the second election, I had to prove for myself. In my third election, I had to.
Yeah.
Of course, they are a big towering support. The NCP support base is huge, towering. But eventually, you also, and my parliamentary performance, I have to go there and perform. Otherwise, people say, she doesn't even go to parliament, she's not performing. Why the hell should we vote for her? Which is absolutely right. I want to pass on merit by working hard. So I want to do well in parliament, and people who, there's I, how should I tell you? There's a lot of pressure on you when you are a voice for 20 to 22 lakh people. The kind of trust they have put into you. Can't let your say stakeholders down. And it's something that I have gone up to them to ask for a vote. So when they have shown the faith and the trust and voted me into representing them, how can I let them down? I mean, shame on me if I did it.
Does that enormous amount of trust, that responsibility and the accountability that comes with it, does that ever make you nervous?
I love accountability by nature. I want to be accountable. I want my voters to know what I'm doing at all time. Why do I use my social media? Because I want them to know where their MP is at all given times. Because I think I'm accountable. My time is accountable to them. I'm in public life. So I'm okay with this. And I love being transparent. It's so much easier, no? That you put it on the table for them, which is wonderful for me. So I love the accountability part. Of course, is there pressure? Yes, there is. Because if I make a mistake, it's going to not only let me down or my family down, but I'm going to let all my stakeholders down, which is not the right thing to do. So clearly, this every job, I mean, your job comes with a lot of responsibility. So every job comes with a responsibility. But I always tell myself, I sort of always make sure the compass is sort of clicked at all times. But Supriya, be aware, you have to be conscious, you have to be aware about this responsibility that people and trust. I mean, I always tell people that in Marathi, I always tell them that prem kami jast झालं तरी चालेल means love can go up and down, but trust is something. Once the mirror is cracked, it's very hard to put it together. So it's very, very important for me in every relationship, especially my stakeholders, or all my voters, all party people who have shown so much faith in me and giving me this ticket, making sure I win. So I mean, NCP, my family, and all my voters. So I think these three are people I'm completely accountable to. I may not be that accountable to you, but I'm definitely accountable to them. They can ask me, "Hello, what are you doing?" Because I am accountable to them, and they voted me. And I'm in public life. It's not a different life.
So how do you balance it? How do you balance that with your children?
You know, well, I always tell everybody that it's not only me. There are millions of women who work all over the world. There's a woman who gets up in the morning, fills water, cooks, goes to the farm, works for 8, 10, 12 hours, comes back, cooks, makes sure kids are okay, her in-laws are okay, husband's okay. She does all that. There are millions of women who take the train, cook, clean, take the train, come to Mumbai city, work, go back. Do you ever ask them how do you manage it? They manage it, right? So I think my life is far more easier than theirs. So I feel that uh, I don't think it's so hard to do it. A, and clearly professionally, so many more women working today. So kids adapt, and I clearly have a huge family support. I mean, my husband's family, my family, it's a huge family support that I have. That's why I can do what I'm doing. So family is a big support, and I think kids adapt. And three, there are millions of women who work much harder than me and have it much tougher than me. So I don't think I'm in a position to say that, oh my God, how is it managed? Not at all. You want to manage it? Millions of women do it, yeah. What's the big deal? If they can do it, so can you.
So how did they adjust to the last 2 years, Supriya? Was it, the online studies and everything? I mean, they're at the end of the day, they're still, kids. I mean, our children have all had a bad time of the last 2 years. So was it tough for them as well?
Jyotsna, if the world is going through it, you have to go through it. You're in it together. You're not alone in the world suffering or doing something. You're in it. Everybody's doing. All your friends are going through it, and these kids have so much more technology access to them. It's not that hard, yeah. And if the whole world is going through something, you have to stick it out, yeah. What can you do? I mean, what's the point? Complaining is not going to make it easier. So find solutions to make you happy, and instead of complaining about the situation, be on top of the situation and find things to do.
If they've got your genes, I think they're ready made for politics. If this is what you're teaching them, Supriya, are they interested at all?
Not at all. I mean, if they ask me, which I have told them, even if they don't ask me sometimes, but I would not want my children to join politics.
You wouldn't. Why would you say that though?
I feel that it's a different world. Politics is changing from times when my father, my brother, we are all 10, I mean, father's generation, then my brother's generation, my brother's 10 years older than me. So my generation, it's a 10-year gap still. People have changed, circumstances have changed. And I feel my daughter's an economist, so maybe she should drive career there. My son is still discovering himself, he's studying history. So let them discover their world. Why would I put any pressure on them of any kind? Let them do what makes them happy. And any part of the world has become flat now. It's so connected. So I don't want them to be trapped as because mom did this or your nanaji did this, you need to do that. Not at all. Do what makes you happy and be a good global citizen and contribute to whatever you can to the world you belong to, which has given you so much.
So in the fact that there must have been immense limelight and spotlight on them, given who their grandfather is, given who their mother is. How have you brought them up in that background?
This is the beauty of living in Mumbai. Nobody cares who your father is, grandfather is, or mother is. One. Second, my husband and my mother are exceptionally private people. Exceptionally. Most people don't even know what they look like. So, and which Mumbai gives them that freedom. And my mother has kept it, and so has my husband. They're very private people. They have their own lives. We are also a family which my father and I respect, that we have spouses who don't like a lot of things. They hate limelight. So we respect that. So you live like that. And my children have always been on a bus to school. I mean, that's the beauty of living in Mumbai. I mean, what makes you think you're entitled? Not at all. And let me tell you, Mumbai is the greatest level. So I think it was the best city I could have brought my children up in. They went to a wonderful school and they got bullied in school. They got bullied on the bus, which is lovely. This is how you all learn.
Imagine if they were in Delhi, let me tell you. It would have been a whole different ball game, Supriya.
I don't know about Delhi, so I can't comment, but Mumbai is much easier. I mean, we went to school by bus the whole time, so what's the big deal? And in Mumbai, it's not a big deal. And if we did something more, people laugh at you, And I mean, I was brought up like that. I mean, grew up normally. My dad used to be chief minister of Maharashtra. I still took a bus, and we had no security and all that. So, no, normal. And if I went, my friends would laugh at me. And I'd probably cornered and I'd have no friends, probably, if I did any of this. So, thank God for that, we could have a very normal life. That's the beauty of Mumbai. And
You're
the city.
talking about, you're talking about friends, and I've seen a lot of your social media posts and the camaraderie that is between you and the other politicians across parties. How does that work off away from Parliament?
Well, I think this is the only child syndrome. The only thing you really have is your relationships and people. And my friends are my family. I love my friends, and I'm blessed with friends in every city. I never miss cities, I miss people. So I think the best gift you can give yourself, it may be a very selfish thing. A, I love people, and in my entire journey of 52 years of my life, I've met very beautiful and very interesting people, and I've learned so much from them, and they make me so happy. So I just love it, and I love meeting people, and I learn something from them every day.
And how do these equations work away from the political lines? You've got friends across political parties, don't you?
Yeah, but what is your ideology got to do with your friendship? As a matter of fact, it's wonderful. We can argue, you can debate, you can discuss. That doesn't mean you may like pink and I may like yellow. That doesn't mean, we can have a difference, and I think it's beautiful and interesting to have intelligent people with different ideas, because you learn so much more from each other. So I think that's the beauty of having relationships with all kinds of people in the world, all kinds of. I have friends from across the spectrum, in so many cities. So it's so interesting, you know.
Has anything changed over the last 2 years? I'm not talking about the long term, because we've seen a lot of realignment of relationships, friendships. This COVID has changed a lot of equations, hasn't it, Supriya?
Well, it's a challenging time, but we'll rediscover it. Fortunately, thanks to technology, there are thousands of ways to connect with each other. So you're never really left out. There are WhatsApp groups where you're connected with people. There is Zoom. There's Instagram Live. Here we are so well connected. So I think that all that helps. And it's a challenging time, yeah. It's like being in war. What can you do? Life can't be normal. You have to accept it. And God willing, it's going to be fine soon. We'll all put our good energies together, and we'll be fine soon. And we'll be back to doing all the mad things that we all did before.
Well, I can't wait for that. But there's a question for you, asking you, how did you handle criticism when you were young?
Very difficult. Very, very difficult, because people used to say horrible things about my father and my family. They still do. Let me not fool myself that everybody loves us. But now I think about it in a different way, because you're much older, you know how to handle it, you hear it, you accept it, because people will have opinions, And the beauty of maturity is that you have to have the capacity to hear it and absorb it and, accept it. That, okay, this is how they feel. But when you're younger, you're more emotional, you're more vulnerable. I'm really even more vulnerable and emotional. I won't say I'm not, but the older you get, you learn to accept easier. Like, I would sometimes feel bad. I'd cry to my mother and say, why people talk about my father like this, and things like that. But my mother was very, very practical while I was growing up. She still is very practical. So I think being a close family always helps.
And how tough is it to, keep a straight face, keep those emotions off when you're at work?
It's not difficult. It's part of the game. It's for everybody. It happens to everybody. It's professional people. I think we all go through it. I'm sure you go through it. I go through it. Everybody goes through it.
So the other question was social media. How have you managed to handle that? The kind of trolling that comes the way of women.
I don't read comments. I like to live in a bubble.
Even I don't read it.
Actually live in a bubble. I don't like to read. Because the whole thing is, if you want to say horrible things to me, it's okay, it's your opinion. If you say, Supriya, you're stupid, I accept it. That's your opinion. What can I do about it? Or you say, oh, your thinking is all rubbish. Okay, that's your opinion. Fair enough. And I have no negative or anger about all this. I just ignore it. Sometimes I feel, why should you? Every action doesn't have to have a reaction, right? Yeah, there are people and there are people. Let it go.
What about the fact that, there's also so much of misogyny that comes for a woman politician. I mean, just look at the way Mamata Banerjee was, trashed all through the campaign, or Priyanka Gandhi is wearing some Western clothes. Why are women in politics actually expected to dress down?
I don't think it's I don't think it's only got to do with politics. It happens in every field. Every field, this kind of things happen. It just in our case, it's more in the thing. You don't think it happens to people in cinema, in theater, in anybody who's more in the limelight. It happens in every profession. So it happens to a woman. It doesn't matter where she is. And you just have to put your chin up and say, I'm professional and I'm not going to let them bully me or get bogged down. So you do that and you're fine.
But it's also increasingly hard, isn't it, to tell the children that? How do you explain that to, you just said it was tough when you were handling criticism when you were young. What would you tell the youngsters today to, go through the different facets of social media, the kind of attack that's coming from so many different angles today?
Whatever I've told you is about myself. But if a young
Yeah.
girl getting trolled or somebody's miserably behaving with her, she must go to the police station or she must complain to cyber. There is a cyber cell everywhere in the country. It doesn't matter. See, some things we have to be above politics. You can't be trapped in your government and my government. There are some things we as society must work together on. And I think cyberbullying is something or every politician, every citizen needs to be on board, because we are not the only ones who get. Journalists get bullied. Film stars get bullied, cricketers get, any professional gets bullied. So why would we do that? Young women are getting bullied. It's not necessarily 50 people have to run after you. Sometimes there are young girls who are getting bullied or trolled, which is so unfair. So I think we really need to put a very good system that if anybody is offensively hurt or bullied or bad language, we must have a redressal system where she gets justice very quickly. A few cases go through and people will think 10 times before writing offensive and horrible things about women. I think
That's the problem, isn't it? I mean,
and
we're always waiting for that justice to happen in time.
that, and I think another thing, Jyotsna, is like it's like domestic violence. No? How many women really raise their voice? I keep telling about it. I keep talking about it. That, come on, let's say it. If he's beating you, I'm not saying go to the police station and get him arrested. I understand he's your husband. He's the father of your children. But even if he's beating you up, then there are counselors. Go to the police station, there's a counseling center. Let's take help. Let's get somebody involved. We did this project in my constituency because we realized in the first year of COVID, over every village there was a domestic violence case. We made small groups in every village, and we made sure that the sarpanch got involved, and they took ownership. The village took ownership of domestic violence and said, no, these are our girls. Ye bahu hai hamari, beti hai hamari. We will not allow it. And such beautiful results. Why should everything have to go to the police station? The entire local administration at the panchayat level took ownership of all this, which is lovely and wonderful results. So when you show trust in people and good systems in place, people deliver superior results.
And that system will be needed, right, Supriya? I mean, we've seen we've seen the spaces for women shrink in the last 2 years. We've seen so many girls who've fallen off the educational radar because of, we've had to choose between the boy and the girl. So that system is urgently needed now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, we have to be sensitive and we have to take everybody along. And I think we will have to work even harder when we come back to more normalcy to make sure that all these people who have left out. I mean, Pratham and NGO has made reports on this pan India. And I think we really have to all walk an extra mile to make sure all our children, girls and boys who have left out for whatever reasons, need to come back on board. We need to work harder on it.
Running out of time now, Supriya. Final question. What's next for Supriya Sule? I mean, I know what the whispers and the murmurs obviously talk about, the big things in store for you, but personally, what's next for you?
What next is to go to Delhi soon, Parliament session, make sure we debate the budget well, make sure some good big tickets come to Maharashtra, some good, outputs out of the budget which will help our state, and keep going and working and serving people and making sure that whatever work I do, that my stakeholders are always protected.
Thank you, Supriya. Thank you very much for that conversation, for that easygoing conversation, but very firm conversation as well, with a firm message. Keep going. But thanks so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to speak with you and hope to connect with you again. Thank you.